Exodus chapter 20, we read the account of Moses receiving the gift, the understanding of God as law and order throughout creation and throughout humanity. And God spoke these words, "I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself an image in the form of anything in heaven above, or on the earth beneath, or in the waters below. You shall not bow down to them or worship them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sins of the parents, to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me or reject me, but showing love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandments. You shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God, for the Lord will not hold anyone guiltless who misuses his name and his nature. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Honor your father and your mother, so that you may live long in the land the Lord has given you. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his male or female servant, his ox or donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor." And so we ask the Spirit of truth to give us the understanding that reveals to us in these commandments the good law and order of our God. And so now it is my pleasure to turn this podium over to Bambi Shen, my friend of many years. Many years. And so you will enjoy today hearing her account of what it is to accept, adjust, and appreciate change.
Thank you, James. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone, again. Thank you. You remember me from last September when James was out of town and I came and did the service with you. Thank you. You will receive me so warmly, and again and again, thank you. So James proposed to me that I come back and visit you this Sunday, and I was delighted. There was a very specific reason why he chose this Sunday. All of you who are here, you remembered last evening to turn your clock forward 1 hour so that you be on time this morning. Well, James wanted me to share with you the spiritual exercise I created 20 years ago. First for myself, because I desperately needed it. Then I shared it with Duke Tufty, our minister at Unity on the Plaza and in Kansas City. And for you who have heard Millie Edwards last evening, you know that Reverend James has a direct connection with Unity on the Plaza, and there is a direct line that comes from Unity on the Plaza and here at the lakes. Oh, Sunrise Beach, what a beautiful name that you have in your community. So as I was writing my lesson Wednesday morning, my computer told me that I have a message from Reverend James. Of course, I read it immediately. You already know that the condo where he was living sold unexpectedly, and he had to move out before this weekend. Well, he could not host my husband nor me in his apartment. Instead, he farmed us as, yay, to Karen Kane. Thank you, Karen. It was a delightful, delightful evening, delicious dinner that Karen hosted us, and the hunting lodge. What a different place for us to spend the night. Thank you again, Karen Kane. Well, it is really amazing how Reverend James and all of you are demonstrating that life is all about changes. Sometimes we go through them kicking and screaming, but in the long run, we recognize that the changes were for our greater good. So allow me to tell you the story of these Chinese food carry-out boxes. Reverend James witnessed them from the very beginning, and he remembers putting stickers on them at Unity Temple on the plaza where he was working at that time. You see, 20 years ago, I owned and operated my third Chinese restaurant in Kansas City. My mother, who was 81 at that time, and living in Taiwan, became ill enough to have had 3 hospital stays of a week or longer in the 2-month period. Our relatives were frantic, calling me to her bedside to care for her and to make certain decisions. Well, I took my mother home after her 3rd hospital stay, and she said to me, "You don't even have a husband. There is no need for you to stay in Kansas City. Come to Taiwan to take care of me. You can serve me as my Filipina." Well, that was a very demeaning statement, because a Filipina is a house servant who has gone to Taiwan to work because wages are higher than in her home country of the Philippines. I was saddened to hear how she looked upon me as if I were only a servant to her, dismissing the value of my college and master's degrees earned through my hard work in the United States. You may remember from my talk last time or from reading my book that I had a very difficult relationship with my mother. She considered me to be totally worthless because she said I was her greatest disappointment for having been born a girl. She was quick to remind me that I had promised my father the last time I saw him alive that I would take care of her in her old age. The memory of that promise I had made to him came back to me as if I were still sitting in his office in Tahiti. I knew I had to keep my word. So back in Kansas City, I proceeded to sell my business, my house, my car, my antiques, and many of the things that I had collected during my life of 40 years in the U.S. At the same time, I started the paperwork required for me to immigrate to Taiwan. The formalities proved to be far more complicated than I had anticipated, because Taiwan considered me a foreigner. I was born in Vietnam when it was a French colony, and I had never lived in China nor in Taiwan. Therefore, I had never been registered as a Chinese citizen. It took 2.5 years before I could enter Taiwan with a 12-month temporary permit of residency. In the meantime, I could go in and out of Taiwan with my U.S. passport, but I was only allowed to remain for a maximum of 90 days. I flew back and forth from Kansas City to Taipei at the cost of $12 to $1,500 a round trip, depending on the season. I went to her about every other month. At the same time, I worked at maintaining my restaurant business. Believe you me, the maxim that you cannot serve two masters are true. I met myself coming and going. Worst of all, my mother's berating became constant. I could not please her no matter what I did. I did not know how I could survive her emotional attacks day in and day out. I felt completely alone. Jean was not in my life at that time. I was living the life of a single person for some 18 years. My restaurant was my constant companion, and I was devoted to it heart and soul. How was I going to survive and live with my mother's disapproval daily? How was I going to live in a society completely foreign to me? My saving grace was that I spoke Chinese fluently, but I had never been schooled in it, so I did not read or write Chinese. Can you imagine what life would be for you if you were under those circumstances, if you were living in China and struggling with language issues? The locals would be very helpful to you and forgiving because you are a Caucasian American. But to me, I was struggling with the languages, but such as trying to fill out some forms to open a bank account in Taiwan. I was met with surprise and disdain because I looked Chinese and I acted as an illiterate. I made the game of telling them that I am an American banana. Yellow on the outside, but white with black dots on the inside by virtue of the environment I came from. So I'm an American banana. On one of my flights back to Kansas City, as I was assessing my situation, I realized the enormity of my undertaking. My spirits hit bottom. Driving home from the airport, I scoured the banks of the Missouri River, looking for a place to have an accident. For the first time in my life, I considered suicide. Systematically, I put my affairs in order. I sold all my antique furniture except my bed. I wrapped up the Medal of Valor my father had left me, the medal he had received from the Chinese government after our 4 years in the Japanese concentration camp during the Second World War. The act of releasing his medal shifted my thinking. I said to myself, in my next life, how could I face Father with my cowardice? Where is the courage that he had taught me? I had given him my word that I would take care of Mama. This is no time for me to buckle. I have to find a way. So in my restaurant, I created a spiritual exercise. Again, you heard Reverend James tell you about the prosperity banks, which is when you received the daily word, you received a piece of cardboard. Do you remember that? A little piece of cardboard that folded into the Prosperity Bank. And in those days, you were supposed to put your coins, some, of course, to help buy the daily word, right? And so I knew about that, and I had even used that Prosperity Bank when I first came into Unity in 1974. So that's a few years ago, when I first moved to Kansas City. And I even told my story in my book, how I came into Unity through the introduction from my landlord, who was in Unity. So anyway, in my restaurant, I created this spiritual exercise, and I would drop some change in the box. And being that that my business was a Chinese restaurant, my most available container was a carry-out box. Does that make sense? So, and while I dropped my change, I made myself affirm. I accept, I adjust to, and I appreciate the changes that come into my life. So I played with and I called it the AAA of change, playing on the American use of the word change, which are the coins received back after a purchase. And I donated the box of change to Unity Temple and shared the idea with our minister, Duke Tufty. And our church on the plaza adopted the practice and has used it ever since. Twice a year, on the Sunday when daylight savings time changes, empty boxes are handed out in exchange for full ones that come in. And the donation benefits the maintenance and the beautification of the temple grounds, and also of Unity, in the early days of Unity Village. At my church, it was the temple grounds on the plaza. So, and then we had a young lady who is a dentist, Dr. Nancy Addy. About the same time, she went to Duke and said that she wanted to beautify the grounds of Unity, and so she gathered a team of volunteers, and they named themselves the Garden Fairies. So it's wonderful. So, and for me, in Duke's office, I admitted to him how difficult this move to Taiwan was for me, without saying that at one point I had hit bottom and was planning to end it all. And his words of wisdom were, "Remember, this too shall pass, and you will return to Kansas City." So I hung on to his words of wisdom, along with the words of the first hymn I heard at Unity Church, which is "Confident living rights every wrong," as if they were the beams of a lighthouse in a storm. Well, in Taiwan, I took such good care of my mother, cooking for her 3 times a day, taking her to church every Sunday, getting her involved with the ladies in her congregation. I hosted their monthly meeting at our apartment, and making fancy desserts and other snacks. I love to cook. Just anytime I could cook, I'm happy. I took her to the beauty shop weekly, got her hair fixed, and had her at the monthly meeting of the Zonta Club, which is an international business and professional women similar to the Rotary Club. I helped her become involved with the Association of Women Journalists and Writers. And so she really got a new lease on life. So instead of living only 1 year as she and her doctors had at one time predicted, she lived another 9 years. Although my mother never changed her tune with me, I kept calling my time in Taiwan good. After her health returned, I took Chinese classes designed for foreign adults at the National Normal University, while at the same time I taught French and English. And being that I spoke Chinese, in 15 months I did the work of 3 years. So I also took special training to become a medical interpreter in Chinese. That gave me a new added skill, which I am using in Kansas City, where I'm often called by hospitals to interpret for patients that cannot speak English. So I kept reminding myself that I accept, I adjust to, and I appreciate the changes that came into my life. By having an open-handed attitude, I went through the changes more smoothly, blessing the new opportunities and the new adventures. That's what I mean, that our attitude truly colors our reality. So today, before you leave, you will be given one of these boxes, and I even added two little pieces of mint to make it sweeter for you. It is my gift to you, and encouraging to start practicing this willingness to accept the changes that come into your life and call them good. Remember, I said I force myself to affirm my words. Yes, sometimes we need to fake it until we make it. So I invite you to take a chance. Try my formula. It is sort of similar to the serenity prayer that we all know. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things that I can, and wisdom to know the difference. So I bless you with the Buddha's blessing that says, I wish you peace in every step. Thank you so very much. So as we move into meditation, so we now move into meditation. Again, with palms together, I salute the divine in you. I invite you to straighten your spine. Close your eyes if you're comfortable. Take a few slow, deep breaths. Breathing in to the count of 4. Breathing out to the count of 6. Breathing in. Breathing out. Become totally present to this time and this place. The affirmation for today is, I accept, I adjust to, and I appreciate the changes that come into my life. Most of us have gone through many changes in our lives. We understand that changes will always happen. You may go through some changes without much trouble, Some changes we greatly welcome, while others cause us much pain and fear. Think back when you were perhaps 10 years old. How was your life for you? Was it safe and secure with your family? Did you have a major change of location, change of home, school, and friends because your father had changed jobs? How did you accept this change? How did you make the adjustments? Did this experience teach you early on that life is an adventure full of surprises, discoveries, and lessons? Did you adapt to the new circumstances? Did you grow with the changes? Of course you did. In the long run, you recognize that this move of the family helped you enter and develop in a new and exciting world. Did you end up blessing the move and appreciating the opportunities that brought you to the life that you have today? Can you affirm that life is good? Thank you, God. Life is good. Thank you, God. In the silence, in the silence. We end our meditation by remembering that today is the first day of the rest of our life. We strive to be a beneficial presence in our world. We pray to be the best possible stewards of the gift of life. We go live in our world with a clear mind and a peaceful heart. To ourselves and to each other, we say, body, speech, and mind in perfect oneness. And so it is.